Commission. Thank you all for serving on the commission as a regular member or an alternate. I believe we are still missing one alternate, so we may look for the mayor's office to appoint in the near future. I do want to confirm that Ryan Austin on Zoom can hear us. Ryan, can you chime in and make sure we've got audio?
Loud and clear, Kyle.
Great, thanks, Ryan. I think we'll start by, I know we don't have introductions on here, but I think it might be pertinent to the first and second item. So again, because we don't have a chair here, I'll call the meeting to order, again, of the first Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Why don't we go around and introduce ourselves as the members and the staff here, and then we'll entertain a motion for item 2, which is the election of a chair and vice chair. So, Carrie, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
My name is Carrie Edmondson. I'm an associate planner in the Community Development Department with the city.
Again, Kyle Kearns, Director of Community Development. Carrie and I will probably be at a majority of these. And I think Carrie, you'll find, will play even a more crucial role in some of the different initiatives our office is taking with historic preservation. But moving forward, you can reach out to either Carrie or I with any questions. I'd encourage you to get more information if there's anything on any future agendas that you guys are questioning. With that, go ahead. Oh, one other thing, sorry, housekeeping item. We are recording all the meetings live on Facebook. We do record them so they can be replayed, and obviously we have individuals on Zoom. So when you do talk, please raise the mic and make sure it's on. The green button will be on when you're live. When you're not talking, obviously you can turn it off. Thank you. Go ahead, Bill.
My name's Bill Parker. I'm a Civil War reenactor, military collector. I do displays for the Southwood County Historical Museum, and I've had displays at the library before too.
My name's Jeff Penscover. I've been a lifelong resident of Wisconsin Rapids. The city, or the history of the city, has always interested me. Since I've been a little boy, I remember A Street before it was A Street, and I see these old pictures and I just smile. You know, and this, I consider this an opportunity. I'm one of the alternates. I guess I should mention that, but like I say, I look forward to helping out with this stuff.
Justin Pluis. I have appreciation for history. That's all.
Mike Hittner, interested in history and active with Historic Point Bass for about 39 years. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jackie Bradel Dietrich, and also a lover of history and especially older homes. Been involved in the community for a long time. And I live in a house that is on the National Register and State Register. So gone through that process. Good to be here.
Very cool. Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself?
You bet. Ryan Austin. I'm the District 1 Alderman for the City of Wisconsin Rapids. My day job, I'm also a Senior Superintendent for Bolt Construction, and I too look forward to working within the Historic Preservation Commission to help folks try to preserve the history within Rapids.
Great, thanks. We also have Dennis, another alderman. Dennis, you can introduce yourself if you'd like.
I'm Dennis Pollock. I'm one of the city aldermen.
Great. Well, thank you all. Again, thank you all for being here. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 2. I'll accept any nominations for a chairperson. I think we'll break this out. We'll do nominations for a chairperson and a vote, and then we'll do vice chair immediately afterwards. So again, anybody nominating or anybody maybe offering to take the lead as the chairperson of the commission?
This is just me, but I've known Mike for many, many years, and I think he would, as a historian, he would probably make the best chairman for the commission.
I would just say thanks, Bill, and Bill and I know each other for probably 25 years, but I also vacation quite a bit, so a couple months a year, so there might be a couple months a year I might not be available. I don't go south, but I go other places, so thank you, though. But otherwise, I would entertain it, just knowing my limitations, and the vice chair should be aware of that also.
Do we have any other nominations for chairperson of the commission? So you will not, because we have a full quorum of members, regular members. Unfortunately, no. You can participate in conversation, though, as much as you'd like. I think you could, yeah.
Say your name is Becky? Becky?
That's Jackie.
I'm sorry. Well, you know, I mean, from what I see, you two are top of the thing. I mean, you know, you live in a house like that, that puts you ahead of the game, I guess, a little bit. So I would nominate Jackie, you know, maybe you as a vice.
I guess we should probably do it formally, the nominations in a second, right, Kyle, to be
Yep, in terms of action.
in terms of action, sort of
Yes,
thing.
so I just want to make sure, are there any other nominations for chairperson at this point? We also somewhat have a nomination for vice chair. Any other nominations for chairperson? Okay, so with that, we've got motion on the table to elect Michael Hittner as the chairperson of the commission. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 You can go ahead, I'm not going to call roll. I think.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mike, you've got to vote too.
Aye, I guess.
Okay.
I'm just voting for myself.
All right, so motion carried. Mike, congratulations, you're the chairperson of the commission. With that, we've got one nominee for Jackie. Oh, yeah, Kerry brings up a good point. We didn't have a second, but
I'll nominate Jackie since I think Jeff is not officially on the commission as far as voting, so I'll nominate Jackie for vice chair.
And I'll second.
okay. Any other nominations for vice chair? All right, we will take action on the election of a vice chair for the Historic Preservation Commission. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those against? All right, that motion passes 5-0. Congratulations, Jackie, you are the vice chair of the commission. With that, I'm going to step back and let Mike take over. Mike, thanks. We're on item number 3.
Yes, thank you. And thanks on behalf of Jackie and myself for your confidence in us. The good part about it, you get two West Siders that are half a block apart. So, the third item on the agenda is update on the status of certified local government designation request. Kyle, do you have that, or is?
Yeah, I'm going to turn this over to Kerry, and then I think we're going to invite a member from the state up to introduce himself, too.
better, yeah.
But go ahead, Kerry.
All right, thank you, Chair Hittner and members of the Historic Preservation Commission. So the item number 3 is an update on the status of the certified local government designation request. So this is a designation that we've applied for with the state, and it enables us to access grant funds and to tie into some technical resources that we're not otherwise able to do. And so I just want to provide a timeline on this process, just so the commission knows where we're at with the process. And then, like Kyle said, Jason Tisch, we're lucky to have him here today. He's with the State Historic Preservation Office, and he will be able to provide a lot more information about this. So in November of 2022, the first step to move toward this certified local government designation was that we revised our Chapter 31 Historic Preservation. This is a chapter within the municipal code, and it was adopted. And there were quite a few changes to it. It was pretty outdated. There was information that was not included, such as creation of a Historic Preservation Commission, which is one component that's required to apply for certified local government status. So that was amended. And then in January of 2023, Common Council approved the Historic Preservation Commission appointments. In that same month, we had all our kind of items organized to apply for CLG status. So we did make our formal request for designation as a certified local government to the State Historic Preservation Officer. And as a last step, they did send us a formal agreement that we signed and submitted. And now they are under review. We're under review for that. And they have indicated to us that we should have that final approval hopefully by the end of March. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason if there's anything else you wanted to add about that CLG designation or just any other information.
How's that? That sounds good. I don't have news for you at this point, but what I can tell you is that my office did accept and review the application for CLG status for Wisconsin Rapids. I have forwarded it to the National Park Service. I did that probably about a month ago. And I expect to hear any day. It literally could be any day, any hour that they would get back to me with a final approval at the federal level for that status. So, should I introduce myself or?
Maybe that describe a little bit about your role.
Sure, I
with
should have
this.
started with that. I'm Jason Tisch. I am the Certified Local Government Coordinator. So this is kind of my program statewide. You will be the 77th local government that's joined the program. It's a partnership program. It's a voluntary program. It's a partnership program that was designed at the federal level as a mechanism to get federal funding passed down through the states to local municipalities, local partners. So I call it a partnership program. So you kind of, well, I'll hold off on that. We can talk more about the CLG program later if you want to hear that, if you want to hear more about that. So I am the coordinator of the program. That program entails a sub-grant program. That program is on an annual basis. So as a CLG, you have access to grant funding from our office for historic preservation planning projects. By that I mean a survey, history and architecture survey of your community to identify significant historic properties. You did that back in 1995. It's going on a 30-year-old survey at this point, so you certainly could do an update survey. You can use grant funding for nominations of properties that come up in that survey to the National Register of Historic Places, making those eligible for tax credits. So I kind of think of it as an economic development tool, bringing tax credits to those properties. I think of it as a community development tool, identifying those properties that that convey some aspect of the history of the community. And as I was driving in, I saw a lot of that down here by the river especially. You can use grant funding for design guidelines. A lot of communities use it to develop design guidelines to go along with your, as a component of your local historic preservation program. Design guidelines are really helpful for you folks, basically, because you folks are the ones who will be reviewing exterior alterations to properties that you designate under your local ordinance. And then those properties, when they propose exterior alterations, you folks will be the ones to review those, suggest changes, and ultimately approve those proposals. Design guidelines is a really helpful visual tool. They're typically well illustrated. So it's a visual and kind of interpretive tool for you folks to interpret the standards that are in your ordinance that you'll be responsible for interpreting. Grant funding. Let's see, what else? Educational projects. A lot of communities do educational programming focused on local history and historic properties. And that's kind of a wide open category. Educational programs can be anything from walking tours to events to publications, educational publications. And that category has really been interpreted pretty widely by CLGs across the country. So if you have a brilliant idea for an educational program focused on your local history, let's talk about it. I think the fifth thing is a historic preservation plan. If you don't have a historic preservation plan, a lot of cities do it as a component of their comprehensive plan. We can talk about what that is and what goes into it. Racine just did a really good historic preservation plan. If you want to look up a city historic preservation plan, Racine has a really good one. That's about the range of projects that you can use CLG funding for. I won't talk about that anymore, but I can talk about any aspect of your ordinance, this commission, historic properties, federal programs, state programs, whatever. I'm here for you guys for anything you need tonight, so ask away, ask me anything.
Thank you.
Just a question. I'm on the zoning board of appeals, and it can be quite contentious. Is any of this approval or disapproval of alterations or anything, does that get contentious, or is this just kind of automatic? Or
I can't really say anything universal about these reviews. Everyone is different. Every property is different. Every proposed alteration is different. Every case is different. I have data from CLGs across the state from 2019 that says about 2% of proposals in CLGs statewide don't get approved, ultimately don't get approved. But what typically happens is they get approved as proposed. The HPC, this body, works with the property owner to amend their proposal to meet the standards. That's mostly what happens. That's probably 80% of the cases that I have watched, that I know of. That 80% of the cases, a property owner comes in with a proposal. It doesn't meet the standards, but in negotiation with the HPC, they come to an agreeable solution or agreeable amendments to their proposal that fits the standards. That's kind of the point of this body in any city, is to work with owners of historic properties to find solutions that meet the standards in your ordinance and are an amicable solution for the property owner, according to the ordinance, and the ultimate goal, obviously, is to retain the historic character and the character-defining features of each property. That's the ultimate goal, and in 80% of the cases, that's what happens. They find a solution.
And Justin, in the cases where on the statutes of what we approve, or there's council approved, it goes from us to the council, and the council approves it or disapproves it, right?
Actually, your ordinance makes this commission quasi-judicial. That's really important to remember. This is a quasi-judicial commission. You are empowered by your ordinance to review those proposals and essentially permit those proposals to go ahead. You will be reviewing those proposals based on the standards in your ordinance, and you'll be issuing a certificate of appropriateness, which is essentially a permit, for that proposal to go ahead as agreed upon between the owner and this commission.
And the common council doesn't come into that question?
No.
No. So it's kind of like zoning board of appeals. The next place they go is, I guess, what, court, if somebody
Well,
wanted to go to court?
no. So there's a provision in the state law that allows property owners to appeal decisions of this body to your local council. So there is an appeal process at the state level. I think your ordinance has an appeal process defined, which is good. It's good to define it in your local ordinance because the state level statute doesn't define that process. It just says the property owner has the right to appeal the decision. That's it. What that looks like in process at the local level, it doesn't define. So that's up to the local government to define, and you define that in your ordinance and it is an appeal process. So that's good. It's good to have that in your ordinance.
Well, the only thing I'm questioning is if somebody doesn't like something, they go to the council, and no offense to the council, but then it gets political.
Then it gets
We're not a political body, but the council is elected, and they get certain pressures put on them or not put on them.
Sure.
I just didn't like our statute here because it's a simple majority that council can overturn. I thought it should be a supermajority, so it made it a little tougher so that everything isn't, now, I'm not saying everything will be second guessed, but I'm sure there's going to be a time or two where it's going to be second guessed.
A couple of things. I lost the first one, so I'll go to the second one. In my experience, and I've been dealing with this local process for about 20 years, it's a very, very small percentage of cases that go to that level. I've seen a few cases in the time that I've been in Madison, which is 20 years. And as you know, Madison is a special case. Yeah, I'll just let that stand, that it's a very, very small percentage, very small number of projects that you'll deal with that get contentious, where the property owner will want to appeal, and it goes to the council, and it gets contentious and political. And that, when that happens, it can get, I don't want to say ugly, but it's the local government process working, to be honest. I'm a local government nerd. I love this stuff. And your ordinance, the way it's set up, and presumably integrating with your other zoning and planning ordinances, there's a way that these things go through the system. There's a process defined for all of this, and it works. I've seen it work in other cities, particularly Madison. And it's just the local process working, and sometimes it gets contentious, and that may happen. It may happen 10 years from now or 20 years from now. It may never happen here.
Well, Kyle had kind of told me from the Stevens Point perspective that he can only remember maybe one case in all the years that, and Stevens Point I think has been about 25 years into this program already or more.
Yeah, it's very infrequent. I think most people, you got to keep in mind, this is for local designation only, and most of the time, something that they're contesting might be minimal, right? It might be siding. They might be requesting vinyl siding. It's denied. Okay, well, then they just do the cedar shake or whatever is the historical element to get the certificate of appropriateness. So, yeah, there's an added cost component to doing it historically accurate, but there's also the carrot of tax credits if they're on the, in a historic district on the state or national register. So, yeah, I think the other thing to mention, though, is for local designation, council also has action. So anytime that there's a locally designated historic district, let's say, it takes action by the council as well. You'll see in the next item, in item 4, kind of the the process and the steps and the initiatives that we're going to pursue over the next couple of years here. And I say a couple of years because I think we want to access some of the CLG funding, and given the annual set of funding, it may take those couple of years to pursue those different grants and make those things happen. But there's definitely a lot of good opportunities, and I think that'll come out of historic preservation. It just takes a little time. Thanks.
Any other questions for me while I'm here?
We have a question from the audience, Phil Brown.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how much funding are you talking about?
Every cycle, which is an annual cycle, we have a total of about $140,000 that is competitive among all of the 77 CLGs. In any cycle, I get anywhere from 6 to 12 applications for that funding. Typically, when we grant out that funding, that $144,000 is split among, let's see, this year it's 6 projects. So do the math. I'm not good at math.
$25,000.
$25,000 average per. The maximum grant that you can apply for is $50,000. We have given $50,000 grants in the past few years. It has to be a high priority project, like a survey. There's no minimum. The minimum, I guess, is moot. Not really related to your question, but you can get up to $50,000 per year.
And is that, Justin, is that ranked by Historic Preservation Commission? Is that ranked when if you got 10 or 12 that are applying, and depending on how important different ones are for, say, for us, we might want to do a new survey. If our survey is 30 years old, I'm sure there's maybe locations that don't exist anymore, so those maybe have to be taken off or something. So
Yep. Yeah, there's a whole set of criteria that we use to evaluate every application. After the deadline passes and we get all of the applications in, we sit down with a team of 4 of us and apply those criteria and score each application, and then award grants to the top scorers until the money runs out. So I can tell you that survey is the highest priority. Nominations to the National Register are next, individual or historic districts, and then it goes to things like design guidelines, preservation plans, educational projects.
yeah, Justin, on this fund of $144,000, is that certainly set every year, but has that changed at all in the last 10 years? And why not? Because of cost and inflation and everything else.
It has gone, well, it's not tied to any of that, interestingly. This money comes to the Park Service from offshore oil leases. So I know it's a strange source of funding, but back in the 60s or 70s, whenever this was set up, I don't remember when it was set up, but there was, the question was, what do we do with these millions of dollars that we're getting from offshore oil leases? How do we want to do something to offset the environmental cost of doing this? And the decision at the time was to put that money toward historic preservation. And so the Park Service set up this program to pass the funding down to states and municipalities. So to answer your question, in the last 20 to 30 years, it has gone steadily up. There's a formula that the Park Service uses. They just changed the formula. So next year, Wisconsin may drop a bit, $5,000 to $10,000, but generally that trend is, $5,000 to $10,000 more every year.
Anyone else have any questions of Justin? Otherwise, I think we can probably go on to item number 4. Discussion and presentation of work program, including Historic Preservation Commission roles and responsibilities.
So looking at the roles and responsibilities, so Jason from the Historical Society has put together a really nice Historic Preservation Commission training. I believe there are 10 modules. I mean, it's something that would take a little bit of time, but I just wanted to highlight this as just a nice overview and provides some really good information about Historic Preservation Commission structure, some of the guidelines for typically what the parameters are of a work program. I also wanted to highlight our Municipal Code Chapter 31 Historic Preservation does outline the composition and powers and duties of the Historic Preservation Commission. And then looking at the work program in a little bit of detail, the state recommends that this is part of that training module, that the Historic Preservation prepare 2 work programs annually, one that addresses short-term goals and another for long-term objectives. And I think we will continue to build this out and develop this in our upcoming meetings. For now, though, I would think the highest priority short-term goal would be receiving the CLG designation, and we covered that a little bit earlier. And then the highest priority long-term goal would be accessing those grant funds to renew and conduct a new local property survey. And then, of course, if the commission has anything else that they want included in the work program, feel free to note that, and we can continue to develop this as we have our ongoing meetings.
Anybody have any questions on that from the commission or the public? Number 5, discussion on next steps, including to apply for CLG funds to conduct local property survey. Justin, one question. When are those funds made available? And it sounded like this year they were pretty much gone. Is that what I understand? Or when do you apply for them and when do they be dispensed?
Actually, the timing is good. Right now is the time to start thinking about projects. The next date that you need to be aware of is in, I think it's July or August. It's midsummer. And that is the deadline for a letter of intent. And that's just a letter to me stating that you're intending to apply for a grant, approximately how much and for what.
And would that be, Justin, for 2023 or 2024?
24.
24,
Yep.
okay.
So August, letter of intent, just let me know what you're thinking. Then December is the next deadline, and that is the deadline for application, for a full application. It's typically 10th or 15th of December. So between that letter of intent in August and December, we'll talk about your idea, refine it, define what you want to do and about how much it's going to cost, and all the parameters. We'll kind of talk it out and kind of define a scope of work. And then you'll submit your full application in December. Those get scored in early January, right after the Christmas break. And grants are awarded then in mid-February.
Thank you, Justin.
Sure.
Anything else on that? It sounds like we just missed the go-around on that by about 3-4 months, but we can plan on 2024, and certainly this commission will get together and talk about our priorities and what we want to do. So, item number, we passed the number 5, do you think, or do you want to?
A couple things on item number 5. I just wanted to talk real briefly on the last survey that was done in February of 1996. So as was discussed, 27 years ago, there was a previous study done by Mead and Hunt, And the state prefers that surveys older than 25 years be updated, so we're good candidates for a new update. Part of the reason for this is that a survey today would likely assess properties through 1980, which wasn't done, of course, previously. And this survey would be considered relatively current for 10 years. And this survey would be a first step to identifying properties that may be eligible to access historic tax credits for rehabilitation. And the previous survey results, just a couple highlights, just because I think it's interesting to note. The properties fell under 3 classifications. The property was included in the previous survey and had not been substantially altered. The property was not included but had good potential to be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, or it was within a potential historic district. So the previous survey identified 79 individual properties determined to be potentially eligible for the NRHP and 6 potential historic districts. And these are the cards. This was, of course, these look a little bit older now, but these are the cards that were for each property. So there's a photo, there's some general information about the architecture, about the construction date, and the address. So we get just some good information. And then there were 6 potential historic districts identified. So there was the Hill Street Residential Historic District. This was single-family homes constructed by the Consoweld Company of Wisconsin Rapids to demonstrate its newly developed plastic laminate products. There were approximately 16 houses that were constructed. It was between 1947 and 48. And at this time, this now in 1996, this proposed district included 11 intact examples. And then there was the Lincoln Street Residential Historic District. This encompassed 7 properties along the west side of Lincoln Street between Birch and Witter Street, and 1 adjacent property on Witter Street. There were a variety of architectural styles included in this. This third one is interesting because they identified the St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church Historic District, and they thought that the district may be eligible in year 2001 when the central building, the church, met the 50-year age requirement. And there were also a variety of architectural styles in this district. The 3rd Street Residential Historic District included a concentration of large-scale early 20th century houses in Wisconsin Rapids. This district included 28 properties on 3rd Street South between Witter Street on the north and Chestnut Street on the south, 2 properties on Bell Island, and then a bridge spanning the Wisconsin River to Bell Island. At that time, there were 29 contributing resources. The 5th was the Wisconsin Rapids Hydroelectric Plant Historic District. This included 17 resources that were mainly associated with the Masonry Well Dam, the powerhouse, and 8 sections of the dam that span the Wisconsin River. And then the 6th was Witter Street Residential Historic District, and this included 9 properties along the northeast side of Witter Street. And this was a residential district that also included a variety of architectural styles. And then this is just a map that I put together to kind of show roughly, this isn't exact, but just roughly where those 6 districts are located now. And so we just wanted to provide an idea of what a survey would entail. Likely there would be a lot more now added, in part because of the timeline has shifted so significantly, and there would be more properties that would be included. And again, this isn't all of the numerous individual properties, the 79 individual properties. These are just showing concentrations that potentially at that time could have constituted a potential local historic designation or historic designation district.
Carrie, thank you
Yeah.
for that. Could we request that all the members of the commission get a copy of that? Because we'd like to see what was on there previously so we know maybe what we're looking at, so.
Definitely. Yep, I will be sure to email that out in follow-up.
And then item 6, schedule regular meeting. What commissioners is your preference? Are you this time of day good for most people, or would you like an evening meeting, or what's your thoughts? I know there's some of us, I shouldn't say some of us, I am retired and so I'm available anytime pretty much, but some of you are working certainly and you want to make it convenient for you also. And then what would you like to do it like every other month, or do it every month till we catch up and then and then set it, or what's your preference? Jackie, you have any preference?
Sounds like we need to meet weekly. No. This time is good. Thursdays and Fridays are good times for me personally. Early afternoon.
Okay,
Evening gets a little bit more difficult sometimes for me
Okay.
personally.
Justin?
Evening would be preferably better for me
Evening?
because of after-school activities,
Okay.
sports
Okay,
with my children.
so evening. Jeff? Yeah. Okay, Bill?
For me, after 3 o'clock, Thursdays are a good day for me. But yeah, later in the day, 4 o'clock and on would be
But
about
an
the
evening
best.
one wouldn't be out of the question for you, or
No.
Jackie, I guess. And then Ryan, who's maybe listening in hopefully, so, Ryan, do you have any preference?
Yeah, this day of the week, this time works. More into the evening as well. I'm
Okay.
flexible that way.
So I think from what I'm hearing here, probably we'll do an evening, like a 6 or 7 o'clock or something like that, and make it a little easier for some to do it, and if, for yourself, even Bill, maybe you've got something goes a little later for you, and I know Jackie works from home most of the time, right, Jackie? So I think we'll head towards an evening meeting. Do we want to do it, I suppose monthly is quite a bit to ask, but maybe every other month or something like that? What do you think? I know we got a lot to accomplish, but like Jason was saying, that it basically, if we get something in by July with an intent, and then we finalize it or refine it in December, we can get our name on the board. And so I think if we maybe met in May, we could go over these old surveys individually and then kind of talk about that and see what we want to do. Maybe it's a survey of the community. Jason, do those get preference, those, especially for us as newbies, do those get preference because we've never, or we haven't done it for 27 or 20 or 28 years or something? Does that get a little more preference, I mean, in the
Yes,
file?
the scoring criteria does favor, first of all, it favors the survey project. It favors communities that have old surveys. It favors communities that have not applied for a grant in the last couple of years. So a survey project proposal from here would be a high priority,
Okay, thank you.
especially being a new CLG.
Yes, thank you. So let's maybe aim for a meeting in May, and in an evening meeting, either 6 or 7 o'clock at night, I think. This venue okay, or is this open to us? I suppose everything but council meetings, right?
Thursday was a good night. Yep.
Yeah, Thursday was a good night, so we'll aim for a Thursday. Any time of the month bad for someone that they got something going on the second Thursday or the fourth Thursday or anything like that? Yes, Kyle?
So the fourth Thursday might be the best. Early on in the month, we have a lot of the other city meetings.
Okay,
And then we have kind of municipal court in the middle of the month that occupy this space. So I think the fourth week of the month is
well,
the most space.
let's maybe schedule it for the fourth Thursday in May. And we'll have time to review those surveys and then discuss a little bit that, and then where we want to go from here and that sort of thing. So does that sound reasonable to everybody? Phil, does that work for you? I know you'd like to be integral in this, so,
Try to make it happen.
yeah, sure,
Also have some comments on those historic districts too.
yes. Well, and you notice there was no historic district on the west side. There's individual homes, but there is no district on the west side.
Can I address that situation, Mike?
Yes,
Because that Mead and Hunt report from 1996 was very limited.
Phil, could you come to the, could you come just so Ryan can hear you on, could you come to the podium?
My name is Phil Brown. I'm with representing the Southwood County Historical Museum. And when you look at that limited scope of those 6 historic districts, it's a good start. But the west side, primarily in the St. Lawrence Church area, is our historic Polish neighborhood. And there's at least 6 square blocks on the west side, which, you know, in a perimeter around St. Lawrence. SS Peter and Paul was mentioned, and you could easily expand almost to Baker Street and up to the railroad tracks, and then from First Street all the way up to 12th, even 16th Street. So some of these districts are easily expanded because those homes in those areas are well over 100 years old, many of them. Another very historic district is Manuel Lutheran area. And we're looking at formerly the German Lutheran Church. They changed the name shortly after World War I for some reason. But anyway, you're looking at Howe School, you're looking at the courthouse area, you're looking from Grand Avenue all the way up to 12th, roughly. Grand Avenue to Baker, once again. So, you know, there are some very historic districts. You get down towards 3rd Street, Witter Street. You know, that survey has a good start. But in the meantime, I think it would be a piece of cake with Kyle's knowledge of this community and Carrie and everybody on this commission. I think we know where the most historic districts are. And that's something that we could easily put together, a simple road trip, so to speak, and you know, visit some of those neighborhoods. But anyway, that was my comment. There's a lot of history in this river city, and I certainly hope we can at least designate more areas. $144,000 statewide is a drop in the bucket. No offense. No offense. And, you know, I think it's going to be a local effort in any way we can. So glad to be involved, and it's a work in progress. So congratulations, because it has been 27 years. And, you know, good things come to those who wait.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Phil. So I think we got a kind of our parameters to look at with the 1996 survey, and now we'll be on the 4th Thursday in May. Why don't we, let's do it maybe bi-monthly, let's go May, and then let's do it bi-monthly, at least to start with, and then we know we will be in there, and in July, we could write up a little preliminary thing, and then we've got some time to work on some things in between. Does that sound reasonable to everybody on the commission? I know Jackie likes to meet weekly, but I don't know if that'll happen. But so let's try to do it bi-monthly for the 4th Thursday of the month. And I think the council chambers are good here. I think it's nice to use this, and it's probably not overutilized, so it's nice to use a nice facility that we have here. So I think it'd be good to use this facility if we can, if it's not in use prior to our meeting. So if there's no other business to be discussed, or if anybody else wants to discuss anything, otherwise we could have a motion for adjournment. What's your pleasure?
I have a couple questions.
Yes,
as
go
long
ahead,
as
Jackie.
we have Jason here.
Sure.
Just so I'm understanding,
got me.
because I'm coming into this all new with
Okay.
what's been happening, but what is the average cost for the survey?
A survey for the entire city. What's the population?
18.5.
Oh, okay. Does anyone happen to know the size of Reedsburg?
Probably 7,500, 8,000.
Okay, so Reedsburg got a grant this year to survey the entire city. I believe it was a $25,000 grant. So roughly twice the size of Reedsburg. We might consider doing it in 2 phases. If you want to do the whole city, We could do it in 2 phases. I have a copy of the Mead and Hunt report in '96, and it looks like they focused on probably the oldest section of the city and didn't go out to the boundaries. I don't know my geography here, but it says the survey was conducted in an area roughly bounded by 8th Street on the east, Riverview Expressway on the south and southwest, 11th Avenue and Canal Streets on the west, and the Wisconsin Central Railroad tracks on the north. So if you all have a mental
Yeah,
picture of that.
that's maybe half, maybe at best, or 1/3 of the city. I don't think it covers any more than that.
Okay, so it sounds like they focused on the oldest part of the
The
city.
core of the city, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
I would probably advise you to do the whole city. It's not a huge city. And I think it could be done in 2 phases. So we would just maybe do east of the river in one phase and west of the river in another phase. If those are roughly equal sections, I don't have a clear picture, but.
And then, in order to go forward with any of the other types of things that you have highlighted here, like National Register and Historic District designation, that piece has to be done absolutely 100%?
Doesn't have to be.
Okay.
I
It's
think
not like a prerequisite to the other things happening?
No.
Okay.
No, you don't have to do them in any order. I look at this as a program,
Mm-hmm.
right? The survey is just one part of the program. The next step in the program is to nominate the properties that are eligible in the survey.
Mm-hmm.
Get the tax credits coming in. Get those property owners eligible for tax credits. Get those properties that I saw driving in, like the big, fabulous commercial and industrial buildings that I saw just driving in from the south. Get those listed in the National Register, get them tax credits, get some rehabilitation projects here. That's the superstar shining projects that we see in our office are the projects where a city has an old industrial building or a looked like there was a paper mill on the river. I don't know if that's currently functioning or used or waiting for a reuse. I have no idea. But that looks like a prime subject for rehabilitation using grant credits. Using tax credits. We see these monthly, weekly almost in our office. Cities like Racine and La Crosse and these other cities that have these older commercial buildings, these older industrial buildings that may be just sitting there languishing. There are a group of developers that focus on this. This is their specialty, and several of them work here in Wisconsin that use the tax credit programs, state and federal, to rehab these facilities and bring them from dysfunctional, maybe vacant facilities to new housing in your downtown, new commercial spaces, new cool projects, brew pubs. We see this all the time, and so this is a step in the process of. I think of it as an economic development program. That shifts a lot of people's paradigms when thinking about historic properties or historic preservation. A lot of people think about it as a historic program to identify your cool old historic properties and put some regulation on them to keep them that way. That's kind of an old way to think about historic preservation. So I sincerely think about it as an economic and community development program. Do the survey, nominate the properties, get them tax I'm rambling on, so if you want me to stop, just tell me to shut up.
Tell me about the nomination
talk about
of
this for hours.
properties. How does that step usually look in communities?
Sorry, the nomination of properties?
Yes. Is that something that comes from this group, or once we have?
It can come
Or-
from anybody. This group is in a position to be a leader, take a leadership role in this, because you guys see the whole program, and you guys are the experts, and you guys are the ones who stepped up to care about this program. So you're in a leadership role. It doesn't have to come from you. CLG funding typically is discussed in the HPC. Because you guys are the leaders in this program. So you're the ones who are looking at the need for a survey. You're the ones who are going to look at this and understand it better than most people. And then you're the ones who are going to say to the city, whoever it is, planning, zoning council, I don't know who is going to make that decision, but you're the ones who are going to be able to go to the city and say, hey, look, we've got all these properties that are potentially eligible for tax credits, potentially eligible for really cool rehab projects. We can get funding to do the nominations for these properties. So then you can go to the city and say, hey, we're a CLG. We can get grant funding to nominate this big bank building that I passed by on my way in. So then you'd apply for $5,000 to $10,000 grant to do a nomination, to hire a consultant to do a nomination for that property. It gets listed, and they're eligible for tax credits. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. So right now, when we go on the State Historical Society site, and
Yeah.
then there's properties listed
Yes.
that are either eligible to be on the state register.
Yep.
I've gone through that process, so I'm familiar with that.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that the survey is going to update all of that information?
Yep.
That's a tool to do that?
Exactly.
But like right now, you can go on there and there's lots of properties.
Yes. But
listed.
I'll give you a caution.
Yes.
Not everything that comes up on that database is eligible for listing in the National Register.
Correct. Right.
A lot of the properties in our database meet bare minimum standards, a bare minimum criteria, and that is it's 50 years old or older, and it has some level of historic integrity, which means it looks like it did when it was built, it has most of its materials that it did when it was built. If the person who built that came back today and looked at the buildings, they would recognize it. Say, yeah, that's the building that I built, lived in, designed, whatever. So most of the properties on there meet those two very minimum standards. That's not enough to be eligible for the National Register?
Right. But state and historic tax credit from the state.
No.
No.
So
Okay.
you have to be listed in the National Register to be eligible for tax credits. There's an exception to that, but I won't get into that. But you have to be listed or eligible for the National Register to get tax credits, to be eligible for the tax credit program. In the case of residential homes, single-family houses, I think you have a couple of districts that are single-family houses in here. Getting a little into the weeds, but that's a state tax credit project, state tax credit program only.
Right.
That-
Different than if you have a commercial building.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, and for that state program, that's available only to single-family houses or other residential properties. You can get the tax credit by being eligible for the National Register, officially determined eligible by our office. And then
Which
it
is a
doesn't,
good- yeah.
then it doesn't actually have to be listed and go through that whole process. So there's an exception, but
There's a lack of awareness around all of that.
yes,
For
there is.
sure.
Everywhere.
I don't know if this group function in that educational role. Like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, yeah, you touched on an interesting thing. That's something that a lot of HPCs around the state do, especially in communities where they don't have a lot of locally designated properties. And so they don't have a steady stream of proposed alterations that they have to review. So they have a lot of time to do other things. So a lot of HPCs will kind of take the lead on historic marker programs or educational programs or other projects related to historic properties. They will kind of take the lead on that and be the lead organization on those types of things. And that's that's a perfectly good role for the HPC.
Phil had a question.
Yeah, quick question. The mic here.
Yes, go ahead.
Very good, Jason. That was good review. My question is there a city approximately our size, what are we looking, 15,000, 20,000?
Like 18 and
18? Okay, city similar in size to ours that has done an exceptional job from day one, and some of the things that we should be looking at?
I think Phil's just referring, Jason, to not in reinventing the wheel.
Sure.
Road trip.
Yeah.
Cedarburg has done a good job. Cedarburg. I mean, it's not the same type of community as Wisconsin Rapids, but it's a similar size. It's a smallish community. They have a main street. I think it's actually a little smaller than Rapids, but they have a main street going through town. The whole stretch of that main street is a local historic district and a National Register district, so they get the tax credits, but they also have the local regulation. And Cedarburg's been Stoughton is another one I can talk about, Stoughton. Cedarburg's been a CLG for a couple of decades, I think, and they have really capitalized on their historic downtown. People go to Cedarburg because of its charming downtown. And they did the process. They did a survey, they designated, they boosted their downtown. I think they're a Main Street program. It's another affinity program that you could consider. You may be a Main Street program already, I don't know.
we're a Connect community, but not a Main
Oh,
Street.
okay. Okay, so you're connected with that expertise as well. And I always tell CLGs that the Main Street program is a really good affinity program for your commercial district. So Cedarburg, Stoughton is another one. Stoughton's a similar size. They have done the same thing. They have a huge residential historic district. People love living there. They have a little 3 or 4 block downtown, just a typical Wisconsin downtown. It's been a local district for many years. They do a great job of maintaining it. They just got a grant to do a new set of design guidelines for their downtown district.
Would Evansville be possibly another good
Evansville is a
example?
good one too, yep.
Yeah.
Evansville had a mayor for a long time who was also a lawyer, who was a very big booster of their historic character of Evansville and took them through the whole program of doing a survey and designating National Register, designating locally, and kind of turning it into a little destination downtown.
What we might look at doing, I think, and Phil alluded to it, is that with that 144,000, if we want to do a survey, and maybe we take a road trip and talk to some of this historic preservation commissions from these other towns and tour their towns, we might want to get into the budget process for Wisconsin Rapids, the city, and maybe include a little money to supplement this grant that we could possibly get, so that we can do it in one time rather than doing it in a second phase. Do it all at one time. Maybe we get from this grant, we get 35,000 and we get 20,000 from the city or something. And I think we just have to get in line and get our ducks in a row, and we could go into the city council, the finance committee, and talk to them about that.
I always advise CLGs to get a little budget, even if it's $2,000, $1,000, just enough to send some of you folks to some trainings. We do a conference every year in October for folks like you. There's a national organization called the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. They specialize in training people exactly like you serving on commissions exactly like this all over the country. Because it is kind of a specialized thing that cities do. It's different than zoning, it's different than it's kind of different than planning. But it's very specialized expertise, and there's a lot of things to consider. There's a lot of things that you folks on these commissions need to know about how local planning works, how local governments work, how nationally recognized best practices for historic preservation. So there is a lot of training out there in terms of NAPC. NAPC has great training. Look at that training module that Carrie pointed out, that Carrie had up on the screen that's on our website. It's self-guided. You can do it at your own pace, but it's really good. It covers a lot of the things that HPC commissioners need to know about what they're doing.
Thank you, Jason.
So-
Thank you, Jason. Any other questions commissioners have? I think we got our, Bill?
I got a question on the training.
Sure.
How would we sign up to do that? Like go to one of them classes?
So our training on our website is self-guided. Go ahead and do that on your own, at your own pace. I send probably weekly or every couple of weeks, I send out to all my CLGs any kind of training opportunities that I come across. I just sent one, Carrie, you probably got it, this week it's from the NAPC, that organization that I talked about. They put on webinars all the time. If you're a member of NHPC, they're free. I'd say be a member as a community or as a commission. There's a commission rate for membership. Do the commission rate if you get a little budget. Be a member as a commission. That way you all have access to the trainings that NAPC does. So this it's in a couple of weeks, but I just sent it out today. It's a training on local historic preservation plans, how to do them, how to think about them, and they have it's a panel. I think there's like 5 presenters from all over the state, or all over the country, sorry. One's from Wisconsin, one's from Texas and other states. And they talk about historic preservation plans and how to think about approaching them and how to do it and how to get funding for it. We have funding for it. There is one other state organization. I'll just mention it briefly for anyone who's taking notes. It's called the Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions, WAHPC. They do a conference every year. It's actually coming up in April. They provide training at that conference. But yeah, find these organizations that do this training. Watch their website. I always send them to Carrie and Kyle, I think. You two are on my list. So they'll get emails from me about these trainings. Hopefully they'll pass them on to you all. Otherwise, watch these organizations, NAPC and WAHPC. They do trainings occasionally. And just sign up. And I'd really recommend that you become a member of NAPC as a commission. I think it's a relatively small annual fee to be a member.
That answer your question, Bill? Okay.
Good.
So there's lots of educational opportunities, you just have to tap into.
There are, and I tend to funnel them to my contacts and
Yeah.
CLGs. And
Kyle or Carrie, do we as a commission have any kind of budget, or is there $0 in there?
No budget yet, but I think with small incremental steps, we may get to that point.
Well, it's nice that we have 2 aldermen that are interested anyway. That's 2 out of, so we already got to start.
Yeah. And I think if, we have in community development, we have a miscellaneous budget, and for like plan commission workshops and zoning board workshops, we've used that miscellaneous budget to send those commissioners to those trainings. So I think if there was a training that was reasonably priced, $50, $100, and it was either
Could use that,
virtual or-
some of that money for.
Yeah, we could use our miscellaneous budget.
Okay.
In the interim until we establish a HPC budget.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? Justin? No? No? Jackie, any other questions? I'd like to thank Jason for coming and enlightening us on everything, and thank all of you former members with myself included for your service for this undertaking. And it's a big undertaking, but it's a very important undertaking for our city, long overdue, I would think. And we'll go forward from this point, and hopefully we can make our city proud and ourselves proud of what we do. So, thank you. Then I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Looks like about 5:13 on adjournment. Thank you very much.